Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. I'm glad to be back with y'all. The surgery was good, went good. I'm doing a lot better. I've got a great big lump right here on my chest. Um, I'm not going to try to take my shirt off because I can't use my left arm real great yet. But I've got a picture I'll put up here in a bit. They made about a 3-inch incision, and then they implanted this. Um, it's a pacemaker slash defibrillator unit that also controls my left side bundle branch blockage. It's a 3-wire lead. And they had to, I was under the knife for about 5.5 hours all told. So right down here, I've got the pacemaker, and then above it is the scar, and it's going to be this long. I mean, my thumb and my finger are at the edges of that incision, but the swelling has come down a lot. But it's going to leave an interesting scar. So I'm up. I'm doing a lot better. I can't drive yet. They still don't want me using my left arm for very much, and I have to sleep with a brace on it when I go to bed, so I don't like raise my left arm up above my head. Because if I do, I could pull the leads. So they want to make sure that I don't overuse it for the next several weeks until those leads have healed in place. Otherwise, they'd have to go back in and put them back in. So, appreciate everybody's prayers, everybody's kind words. It has been fantastic. There's not been a day go by I haven't gotten several messages, people wishing me a speedy recovery, and it's meant the world to me. Thank you guys so much. I haven't answered as much as I would have liked. As the first 4 or 5 days, I was pretty loopy. I mean, I was still in a lot of pain, and especially those first couple of days, I was still coming out of the anesthetic. So, but I'm doing better now. I'm up and around. Can't drive yet. Can't get back out in the woods yet, but that's coming. All in all, I actually feel better. I'm breathing better when I'm moving around, when I'm doing stuff. Like I've been walking through the neighborhood with my son Noah, and I don't have the shortness of breath I would get after a little bit. Um, I feel like my heart function is better. Overall, I feel better than I did before, and I know that's going to continue to get better over the next few weeks as this thing finally heals up. So again, thank you guys for all your prayers and kind words, and it's meant a hell of a lot to me. I know I'm coming to kind of rambling here tonight. I usually jump in with saying, joining me in the studio tonight is Robbie Rip Rains, my brother from South Crackalacky. Robbie, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you're doing better.
You and me both, man. I was pretty worried about it for a while.
Yeah, I knew you was gonna pull through though.
Well, apparently I was pretty out of it for a bit, and when I was coming out of the anesthetic, I guess I was pretty goofy. I'm glad they didn't record that and post it on Facebook.
I I may or may not have a picture of you sticking your tongue out after you came out. I don't know. It may or may not have been sent to me.
It sounds like Noah. I definitely sense his hand in that.
Yeah, you know, it happens. I'm sure he would have done the same thing to me.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. There is no doubt in my military mind. That's exactly what he would have done. Here we go. I'm gonna share a picture. This isn't just yes. Admittedly, I'm not wearing a shirt in this, but you don't really see anything other than just like the upper part of my chest. So, not like I'm going crazy here. But I'm trying to get this to share, and it doesn't want to. Here we go. Now I got it. This is me just a couple of days ago. That's the incision. It's going to leave a pretty nasty scar.
All things considered, though, what they had to do, that's not really that bad. I mean, it is bad, but the alternative could have been a lot worse.
Now, this right here, there's not even any sutures in it. Uh, it's all glue. They've glued that back together. Um, And down here beneath it, down kind of in this area where I'm moving the mouse, is where the uh, actual unit is, and it's bigger than I thought it was and heavier. When I had my checkup with the doctor the other day, they actually handed me a demo unit, and I was surprised how heavy that thing was. It's made out of titanium.
Yeah, I've seen Dad's scar from his quadruple bypass. So trust me, the scar could get a lot worse.
But, I'm not too worried about scars. I mean, I've got scars all over me from stupid things I did in my youth, and so I don't care if the scar fades. I'm not worried about that. It's gonna be an interesting conversation piece. Like if I'm at the pool, what the hell happened to your shoulder? I'm already working out the answers now. I'm gonna be like, hey, I got bit by a dog, man.
I owed Bigfoot $500 in a card game, and he took a pound of flesh.
Northwood says it looks like a good place to put a wild hunt tattoo. That's a thought. Robbie's got one.
I can't ever figure out which way to turn.
I like that tattoo. Greg House says looks like I need a Team Odin tattoo. There we go. I put my thin blue line on it. There we go.
Thin blue jagged line.
Thin blue jagged line. It's still a line. Lyle McThompson says, don't go out in the woods. The dogmen might smell the wound. It's possible. I mean, if you've got an open wound, any predator is going to smell it. But, they won't be doing anything too terribly strenuous for the next few weeks. So it's probably going to be a little bit before I get to do anything crazy or go out and film or anything. But, I'm getting there. And I've started walking around the neighborhood just post-surgery. One, to get out in the sunshine, and two, to continue to get the exercise. And I found that I'm actually breathing better, even when I'm like walking uphill and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think by the time I'm back out in the woods, my endurance is going to be a lot better. I mean, even when we were in Combs Ferry, we weren't moving very fast, but there was a couple times I'd stop and catch my breath.
You weren't the only one, so don't feel bad.
Noah Pender says, I woke up from surgery and all the nurses and doctors said I wouldn't stop thanking them. I was probably making smart-ass comments to the very end. I pretty much guarantee it.
So, at what point did you remember too and start remembering again? Because you said you got the milk of amnesia.
Yeah, when they hit me with that stuff, I remember them moving me from the gurney, or not the gurney, but the hospital bed. They just pushed me down there, and then slid me from one bed over to the operating table. I remember that, and then I remember the anesthesiologist put an oxygen mask over me. He goes, "All right, I'm going to put something in your IV, and I just want you to breathe deep and relax." And I was just sitting there, just kind of breathing, and just kind of looking around. I remember they were playing music, and Billy Joel's Piano Man was playing in the background. I'm like, oh, that's Piano Man, awesome. And so I like that song. And the anesthesiologist goes, how do you feel? I said, I feel fine. And he goes, I don't guess that was enough then. And then I don't remember a thing after him saying that.
That was enough.
Apparently he decided I needed a little bit more, and at that point I was just gone. And they said, Annette and the boys said when they brought me back out of the ER and was walking me down the hallway, taking me on the gurney back to my room, that I was putting my arm up over my eyes because the light was bright, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, the one and only time I was out was when I had my wisdom teeth cut out, and I don't know what they gave me, but I can remember being in the operating room, and really the next clear memory I had was back at home. My dad said that I wanted to walk out of the hospital and I didn't want to ride in a wheelchair. And
I did walk out of the hospital when they released me. I walked to the car.
They wouldn't let me. I don't know why. I just had my wisdom teeth cut out, but they wouldn't let me. But I don't remember. Like I said, I remember going to and being in the operating room, and kind of like you said, they put the mask on my face, and then Next clear memory I had was at my house. And it ain't
Crystal
too
J
cool.
said, "Is it just me or is DA Roberts kind of quiet? I can barely hear him." I've repositioned the mic on my desk, and I'm not really liking the way that it's set up now because it makes it harder to hear me. So probably after the show tonight, I'm going to get with Noah and see if we can find a better mic setup for the way this is, because it's well, if you see me lean over far enough, you'll see part of my hat disappear. It's because I've got a green screen cover on the mic, and to blend it out as well. So, but when it was down lower, when I had the mic mounted actually to the lower part of my desk and then brought it over, you could hear me better, but it was in the way. I mean, if I tried to get to the mouse or anything on my desk, the mic arm was just completely in the way. So hopefully, Noah and I can come up with a better solution where one, it's not in the way, and two, you guys can hear me a little better.
Yeah, you had to move it that time when me and you were both crammed into your room. And
Yeah, we were in here like sardines. Mark Napier says, "Try a boom mic." I've got a good mic. It's just a matter of finding the right position for it. For as podcasting goes, Noah says I've got one of the best mics you can get. So the mic itself is not the issue; it's just the positioning, and we'll get that figured out. We'll get that figured out here probably the next day or two, hopefully before we come back on Wednesday. So, Robbie, anything new and exciting going on out y'all's way?
uh, not. I mean, just what I told you about. You know, that there's a possibility that there might be some activity going on still somewhere close to the house. Hadn't heard anything really new yet about that. Dad's still looking and seeing if he can find who owns that property now. Other than that, just school's about to start back, so that's kind of I got.
Did you ever get a chance to stop by that restaurant down the road from you?
Yeah, and the day that I stopped by, they happened to be closed, so I hadn't had a chance to get back by there. So,
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing what they might have to say. I mean, if it's just a few hundred yards from your house,
well,
that
it's
ties
about
right in with not only your sighting, but the stuff that's going on in that area even now.
yeah, it's about a quarter of a mile. I mean, it's not far, and it's definitely within walking distance. But you know, it's well within the parameters of where I had my sighting all those years ago, especially for something like that. So,
Well, I had a couple of interesting bits to share. Um, been kind of asking around. If y'all remember me talking about, and this is one of the stories that Robbie and I were talking about just the other day, about the elderly guy that disappeared from his farm down in Arkansas. So put out some inquiries. I've been trying to chase the story down through some folks I know that work with Arkansas Department of Conservation, some game wardens that work down in Arkansas. And at first, I was getting pretty much nothing. No, they wouldn't answer. Go, yeah, I don't know anything about that. But then I got a hold of one guy who was a friend of a friend kind of thing, and the only thing he would say is, "Where did you hear that?" He wouldn't tell me whether or not it was true. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Where did you hear that?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I can't tell you exactly who I heard it from." He's like, "Well, I would be interested to know how you heard about that."
hmm.
So to me, that's kind of like a backhanded admission that probably happened.
Yeah, they don't say stuff like that unless it means something.
Right. Yeah, that struck a nerve with somebody.
Yeah.
And he was more concerned with how I found out about the story than even denying it.
Yeah, and if that was his concern, is where you heard it versus not saying, "Oh no, that didn't happen." Who that make to me? That's just like you said. That's that backhand admission all day long, plausible deniability.
Right. Now, he didn't want to go on record and say anything about it. He just wanted to know how I knew. So I kind of took that as kind of, like you said, backhanded confirmation. But this one, this story, I think you guys are going to enjoy. So this is, I've got a lot of friends in law enforcement in Southwest Missouri. I know officers from departments all over this end of the state from going to training classes and things like that. Robbie can tell you, when you go to a training seminar, you meet officers from other states, other agencies, federal, state, county, even municipalities. So you run into a lot of different officers, and you do this job long enough, you have a pretty good network of contacts. Well, this story came to me from an old boy who, well, he would prefer to not even have his name or his department given, because he was the only one on duty that night, and they would know exactly who he was. And he was told not to tell anybody the story. So hopefully he's not going to get in trouble for me relaying this story. But I'm not going to say which county it was. It was a county. It is not a county that borders Greene County, but it is nearby. Well, I'm not even going to say the direction. I should probably not, because if you know anything about Southwest Missouri, just given the direction might give it away.
Yeah.
But it's an area that's been known for this kind of thing. And if any of you all have worked for any small departments, and I'm sure Greg House is in the house tonight, he can attest to this too. If you work for a small sheriff's department, there will be times where you are the only one on duty.
Hell, I've done that working in a small city. I've worked the entire city by myself.
When I worked Walnut Grove, there was many times I was the only one on duty, and my only chance of backup was another officer who was the only one on duty in his town, which was about 15 miles away. We would back each other up, but it took a few minutes to get there. I worked Walnut Grove, and the other officer that was usually on duty was over in Ash Grove, and they're, like I said, 10, 15 miles apart. But we would back each other up as needed, and otherwise we'd be waiting on Greene County, and we never saw them out in that part of the county. It was rare. But anyway, I digressed. This is from a county that does not border Greene County, so you can take that for what it is, but that is not a county that is up against Greene County. This happened just a couple of weeks ago. Old boy was still pretty upset about it. He got a call from dispatch that somebody had hit a deer, which, if you work rural, that's a fairly common call. So he goes out, and this is a county road, not a major highway, just a little 2-lane blacktop with no shoulders that just slopes off the side, and it's almost gave part of the location away. Well, it just slopes down off the road into ditches surrounded by woods. So there's very thick woods on both sides of the road. He pulls up, sees that it's not dead. There's a deer in the road, and it's bleeding, and it's bleeding and bleating as well. It's calling out. It's hurt bad. Both back legs were broken. Looked like the back was probably snapped. Had been hit, and the car just had gone on. So he's looking at it, deciding whether or not he needs to go ahead and just put it down, or wait for someone to come haul it off. Because a lot of times, if you're an on-duty officer and you've got an animal like that that's injured, you can take it and donate it. You can put the animal down, you can take it and donate it to like cross lines and things like that, and they will cut the meat up and give it out to people. So sometimes we would do that as well. And that's what he was waiting to call back to find out what to do with it before he killed it. Well, he's out here on this stretch of road, miles of nothing but highway and woods. He doesn't see any other vehicles. There's no lights. There's no campfire signs of anybody in the woods. It's just dark in the woods. And he's got his headlights pointed at the deer, and he's crouched down next to it, and he's got his red, white, and blues going. He's got his takedowns on. So that's it. That's the only light coming from his car. So he's leaning down, checking out the deer, and he hears something smash into his car. And he looks back, and one of the side windows on the passenger side near the trees had been smashed. So he draws his gun and running over there, and there's a rock laying in the back seat of his car. So he flipped. He had a. If you guys wonder what a TLR1 tactical light is, might get in trouble with YouTube, but this is a TLR1 right here, and they're pretty damn bright. So he lights up the car, then the side of the road with his TLR1, looking for who threw that rock, and checks the area. Said the whole everything around him was just dead quiet. He turns back around and looks in the headlights, and the deer is gone.
Hmm.
And at that point, he said he radioed in as handled by officer, got in his car, and got the hell out of there.
How did he explain the back window getting?
I didn't ask. I knew it was going to be an interesting one, but I'm wondering how he went back to his department and said I had a busted back window.
Dear Chief, it was a dark and stormy night.
I said I was driving and somebody threw a rock at me or something like that. But he said that I said, "Do you feel like you were being hunted?" He goes, "No, I felt like I was distracted on purpose. So whatever the hell that was could grab that deer."
Too bad he didn't have his dash cam on.
Yeah, I asked him about the dash cam video, and he said he didn't have one.
He probably did the same thing that all of us do. You in a situation like that, you cut your blue lights on. It's a situation where it's not going to come back to court. Blue lights activated, camera activated. You reach up and say, "Boop, stop the camera." I've done it a million times, and it's stupid. You should leave it on, but it's just okay. This is why waste the space or tapes like it used to be. Like we used to have to, because we used to have to buy our own VHS. Yes, we had VHS tapes in the old days. You know that, DA. But why waste the space for sitting out there messing around with a deer on the side of the road? But you just never know when something like that's going to happen. I guarantee you that's what he did. He went up there and turned it off. And what would it have picked up had he not turned it off?
Yeah.
Just saying.
That story gave me chills when he was telling me, because I've been in that exact situation where I was stopped on a dark road to get out and check something. Back then, I didn't even let that kind of thing enter my mind. Like, what if something attacks me while I'm out here? I've dragged a dead animal out of the road. I stopped my car one time and got out to pet a mother dog and her puppies because she was in the middle of the road, and then I kind of shoot her off the road. But yeah, that was a dash cam video. I didn't need to go into my chief and me sitting out there kneeling down in the road playing with puppies. but I've done that exact same thing. Just turned the dash cam off. But I would love to.
I've done it a million times because it's a force of habit. If you like, and I've thought about this, like when we're leading funeral processions, cut the blue lights on, and the camera cuts on and turn it off. But what happens if somebody hits me or something and I'm sitting there going through all this and I don't have my dash cam on? You need to start leaving that on. I mean,
he said it was a decent size, probably, I can't really give you a good estimate on weight, but he said it was a good sized, not quite trophy buck, but a good sized deer. And someone asked how big the rock was. He said the rock was about the size of a softball.
How smart is that though?
Yeah.
To break the window on the car to get him back over there. That's pretty
creepy smart.
Yeah.
He said, I know damn good and well, he said, if there had been a person out there, he says, they would have had to have some form of light. Otherwise, they were laying there just waiting for him in the dark. He said, why would somebody be out there just to break a cop's window over a downed deer? And he said, the bad part was, he says, if something could run out there and snatch that deer up and carry it off without me hearing it, probably could have done the same to me. I'm like, yeah, you would have definitely been on the menu if you'd have stuck around that area too long.
That's
I'm not planning on going back out there either.
That's a Lakeview man vibes right there.
Yeah. Gary Lowe's would just think they wanted the deer and not him too. Exactly. He very well could have been on the menu if he'd have stuck around.
Yeah.
Leanne Smith says, could it have been two of them? Well, yeah, very easily could have been more than one. One of them could
Well,
have smashed the window to get his attention, while another one, while he had his back, came out on the road and got the deer and went back.
yeah, more than likely, I would say it was at least two.
Yeah, because he said he never heard anything move. He didn't hear anything growl at him, nothing like that. He said the woods were just dead quiet.
Now, see, if it had been us, if we turned around and seen the deer's gone, we'd have been going, okay, which way? Oh, it went that way. Let's go.
Yeah, you and me, as dumb as we are, we'd have been tracking it if we could.
Yep. But
Not be the first time we've done something like that.
no.
Probably won't be the last either.
Nope.
Amy WC says, have you considered deer hunting weirdness? So much jealousy about antlers and such. Yeah, but you know, in this particular case, I don't think it was somebody hunting the deer, because he'd gotten a call from dispatch that the person who had struck the deer called in and said that I just hit a deer out here near a mile marker, whatever it was. I don't know what the mile marker was. And said I've got out here with I hit a deer. So he went out to check out that, see if there's damage to the vehicle, and the vehicle was gone. So I don't know if the person was waiting for the police to get there and something scared them or whatever. But he said the deer was laying in the middle of his lane when he drove up, and he got out and it was bleeding and blew. It was definitely bleeding from where it had been struck. He said it was trying to get up with its front hooves, and its back legs wouldn't respond, and he was about to shoot it when his back window exploded.
Spencer said he heard about a road cleanup guy talking about a booger grabbing something out of the back of his, or deer, something out of the back of his truck. That's actually something that they've talked about on that Beast of Bray Road documentary too.
Having to dude up on Bray Road.
Yeah, he was a conservation officer, and one of his jobs was to get data. I don't know what kind of data. It never really went into that, but like from roadkill, I guess, to try to see if there was certain areas that were, higher in population of deer going across or whatever. Anyway, he puts the deer in his truck, and he's getting ready to drive back to wherever he's going to get all the information. And as he shuts the door, he hears something, and he turns around and looks and sees this thing running up behind him. So he floors it, takes off. The thing keeps running, runs up, and he sees it reach up and grab hold of the deer and jerk the deer out of the back of his truck. And they said, well, what did you do? He said, I don't know. I didn't stop till I got back to my office.
Greg House says he's had 6 deer stolen in the last 12 years. I've had 1 deer stolen that I know for sure was taken, and I've had others that I was tracking after following a blood trail and just never found a thing. Blood trail stops and I don't find the deer. Vic Kumar had a question. He says, to your knowledge, has there been sightings of Dogman outside of the Americas and Europe? Yes, there have. There have been Dogman sightings on every continent except Antarctica.
And we just don't know about Antarctica because that's all hush hush.
Exactly. And nobody's allowed to really spend any time in there. But on the Pie-Rice map, which is a map of Antarctica without ice on it, there are Bigfoot and Dogman type creatures in the margins of the map drawn in. So take that for what you will, but I think it's very compelling anyway.
Yeah, Vicky, it's on that. I think I want to say it might even be the Small Town Monsters version of the Beast of Bray Road. Their documentary they did, but one of the documentaries about the Beast of Bray Road, they interviewed that guy, and he told that story. It's a creepy story too. I mean, think about turning around and seeing this thing running at you while you driving your truck off, and it reaches and grabs the deer out of the back of the truck. I'm like, okay, buddy, if that's all you want, you can have it.
Yeah, I probably would have beat feet for the office as well. Misty Haynes says, DA, you sound good and strong, look good. How you feeling? Sorry if I missed you answering that already. I feel really good. I mean, I already feel a difference from having that unit in. I don't feel like I get as short of breath. And just being on camera tonight, I've noticed that my face isn't getting like 9 shades of red when I talk. and I've noticed that over the last couple of weeks as well. Well, last week as well. I mean, I noticed an immediate improvement in the way I was breathing and the way I felt once I was, clear headed and out of the anesthesia. But over the last few days, it just seems to have gotten better. Thomas Gershwin says, DA and Robbie come to the Hoosier National Forest in Indiana. I'd love to. If I, in fact, ultimately, if I can, get a Netflix deal or have a book hit the New York Times bestseller list, that's something I want to do, is spend a great deal of time going to places like that and filming. Thank you, Misty. Northwood says, all I know about the Beast of Bray Road is that my ex doesn't live anywhere near there.
He's on the board.
Well, that's one thing about Bigfoot and Dogman is, we both know we all know that they're not existing on fruits and berries alone, and if they're any kind of meat eater or at least an omnivore, that deer is going to be a primary staple of their diet. So when you hear stories about this, like deer kills disappearing, or in the case of that deputy that I talked to, a downed deer in the road vanishing, it makes complete sense, because if there's an easy way to grab a meal, a predator is going to take it, because every time a predator goes out to find something to eat, it has to do a risk benefit analysis. It's got to decide whether or not the risk is worth the reward. Because if, like, for example, let's say you've got a wolf that is hungry and it decides to go after a buffalo. Is it going to go after the 1,400-pound leader of the troop, or one of the older sick ones? It's going to go after one that puts up less of a fight, because animals can't go to the ER. They can't pop into a local Walgreens and get Band-Aids and antibiotics. A wound out there, even sometimes a fairly minor one, can be fatal.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you pick any documentary about any predator, and most of the time that's what they'll tell you is that's a death sentence for anything that hunts for its food. Is if it gets hurt, if it doesn't live in something like a pride of lions, if it's alone, like a cougar, or most bear species that don't hunt in packs, that's where you get a lot of your man eaters from, is old and hurt predators who can't hunt like they're supposed to anymore.
Right. Audacious Amber says she's heard of Bigfoot with wasting disease. I've been wondering about that.
We kind of talked about that.
Yeah, with chronic wasting disease becoming more common in different areas, we're wondering if it could be passed to a Bigfoot, because I know we as people, it's a prion disease. If we eat a deer with CWD, it can affect us. So I've often wondered what other animals it could affect.
Well, we talked about that. What, last year, I think me, you and Doc did that show about that, thinking, a lot of these Wendigo sightings and things like that could have been deer or other things with this disease that contracted this disease and made them look this way. I mean, you just don't know how something like that affects other species.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to even think about what a Bigfoot would look like with CWD.
No kidding. Misty Haynes says, I got sniffed through my tent and found 2 sets of tracks there the next morning. Was it house?
Probably. He's talking about being careful around cougars. So, I mean,
he was. Dee says they do say that cats, etc., weigh in the risk. If it's going to be too risky, the cat will just pass it by. And that's pretty much any wild predator. They're going to have to decide whether or not the reward is worth the risk. Was like Robbie was saying, even a fairly minor injury can get infected and kill it. So animals have got to very carefully consider whether or not the meal they're getting ready to take is going to be their last, because if they're especially if it's a like a mother cougar with cubs, she's going to have to decide whether or not the risk is going to be good enough for her to be able to still get back to her kittens, or is she going to die trying to feed them? So animals are very intelligent. They're going to make this decision based on what's best for them, and I don't blame them. If I was dependent on meat for survival, and the only thing I had was a knife to hunt with, like, because I don't have claws, but all I had was a good solid knife to hunt with. If I had to choose between going after a medium-sized deer that's probably not going to put up a lot of a fight, or a full-grown black bear, I bet your ass I'm picking the deer.
And not for nothing, that's when you've got a lot of big predators in an area and there's an abundance of prey and they've got their pick, chances of things like that happening kind of are, a lot lower. But you get and I guess this leads into, putting us on the menu when there's not a lot of prey items in the area. That kind of shoots us up a little bit higher on the list
make us a little higher on the risk reward value,
because we don't present much of a threat to any big predator. I mean, yeah, we'll fight, but most big predators in nature are not going to have problems taking us down.
right? Even a medium-sized predator. I mean,
Yeah.
look at chimps, for example. How much smaller a chimp is than a human, but they're like 10 times stronger than we are. They'll tear you apart. Michelle Richardson says, any of those wildfires that are in California, you've heard they found any dead Bigfoot or Dogman? I have not heard any stories, but I have in the past, like when there would be forest fires, that they would find dead cryptids and it would get grabbed up pretty fast by the government. Mark Napier says, do you think wasting disease will cause more cryptid attacks on man? I think it's entirely possible. But great example is they use dogs, certain breeds of dogs, to sniff people for cancer. If a dog can be trained, or if a dog's sense of smell is good enough that it can tell a sick animal from a healthy one, they're going to avoid deer with chronic wasting, especially if they're in later stages of it. So if they're smart enough to avoid deer that have that problem, then they're certainly smart enough to look for something that's an alternative that doesn't have it. If the entire deer population in that area of the woods is infected, yeah, other stuff is going to be on the menu.
Well, do you remember that book that I told you about that I read about the guy who wrote the story about the Bigfoot clan that was they contracted rabies?
Yeah.
That's a whole different level of horror and terror. You think about an entire clan of Bigfoot that's pretty much lost their mind. Their mind's frying from fever and they're crazy and just, I mean, imagine Cujo as Bigfoot. I mean,
yeah, no kidding. Roxette says, DA, when Mount St. Helens went, did they find any Bigfoot around the area? According to some of the stories, they hauled dead Bigfoot out in truckloads and in big cargo nets from helicopters. Supposedly, lots of them were found dead. Larry Burnland said, DA, do you think different eye color shine could be gender related? From what I've read, a lot of eye shine depends on diet. So I don't know if it has anything to do with the gender of the animal. And in one case, like when Robbie and I were out in not in LBL, when Robbie and I were out in Joe Bald, when it was looking directly at us, it looked green, but when it was kind of in profile, it looked more white. I think it's the color of the light and the direction of the light affects things as well. Becky Dennison says, DA, do you think that Bigfoot would know that the deer are infected with chronic wasting? I would say it's probably fairly obvious, especially in later stages of the disease. But if they're just recently infected, I don't know. Maybe if their sense of smell is much better than ours. But I would think Dogman would have the advantage in that because canines have a much better sense of smell than primates. Miss Lene says, Robbie, what was the name of that book?
I'm looking for it right now. I think, if I'm not mistaken, because I've got so many of these, I think it's the Bigfoot Hunters by
I think that was the one.
R. Gutierrez.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I
But
couldn't pronounce it.
yeah, Gualtieri. Pretty good book. I mean, it's not, on DA's level, but it'll do in between.
You got it pulled up,
DA.
just show it on camera. That way they can get a look at the cover. Bigfoot Hunters is what Jeff Yarrington says.
Yep. I can get it out of the light. You see it?
Yeah.
I can't see it because it's got too much of a reflection on it on my end. But anyway, yeah, Bigfoot Hunters. It's a pretty good book. I mean, it's like I said, the premise is more interesting than anything about, just what would happen if you had a clan of Bigfoot that were pretty much going crazy from rabies.
Laurel, if you're having trouble commenting on YouTube, try logging out of your YouTube account, then logging back in. That generally does the trick. Excuse me. The Belchkes. Vicky Dennison says something. I'm scared of spiders. Spiders don't get me. I don't really, but I'm not too terribly worried about spiders. But snakes, on the other hand, I do not like a nope rope. Mm-mm.
And I'm the exact opposite. I don't mind snakes, and I can't stand spiders.
I'm of the opinion there's only two kinds of snakes in this world: the kind of snake that'll kill you, and the kind of snake that'll make you kill yourself trying to get away from it.
And there's only one kind of spider, a dead one. Eight-legged freaks.
It's a silly movie, though. It was funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's...
So I've got a couple of Bigfoot book reports for y'all. Well, not really book reports, but movie reports. Every once in a while, I'll talk Annette into watching a couple Bigfoot movies with me, especially if I see one pop up that I'd never heard of before. Well, the first one we started to watch the other night was called Embedded. Much like you would think, when they talked about SEAL teams going into Afghanistan, they would have a news crew embedded with the journalists, with the team,
with the SEAL team. Yeah.
Yes, and then that's what this was. There was some cattle mutilations in this area, and there was a news crew went to cover the cattle mutilations, and then some people were killed, and they were sending out a group of hunters to bring down what was killing people, and there was this news crew that was embedded with the hunters. First off, I will say I have seen better acting in a commercial. The acting was horrible.
Usually is.
Oh no, this was. I'm used to B and C and D and K grade movies. This was like a high school production. Not even that good. Might like a middle school play.
Just like Birdemic level of
yeah,
bad.
kind of that bad.
Oof.
The acting was so bad, and the way they did things, and they obviously had never read literally anything about how things are done. They didn't have even the remotest clue how law enforcement works or how weapons work or anything like that. I managed to make it about 20 minutes into this movie before I looked over to Net and said, I feel dumber for having watched this. Please turn this off. So we didn't make it very far into that movie, and it was mind-numbingly stupid. So I did not finish it, nor do I plan to. If they could tie me in a hospital bed and put that movie on, and I'm going to do my damnedest to go to sleep.
House, not a true statement. There are few good ones out there. Exists is very good.
Good.
Uh,
Primeval.
Primeval is excellent. What's the other one? Big Legend. That's a very good one too.
The second one I watched was made by the same people that made Big Legend. It's called Man versus Bigfoot.
I've seen that one.
Premise is this guy's brother goes for a fishing trip up in the mountains, and come to find out it was filmed down in the Ouachita National Forest, where the first Wild Hunt book is set. Um, Pretty good movie. The acting a little shaky. I mean, not the greatest of actors. There's not a person in it you've ever heard of.
No, there was one famous actor in there. I can't remember who it was.
Bob Gimlin did it. That's right. Bob Gimlin did a cameo.
He had a cameo in it, but there was a famous actor in there. The guy who played the sheriff, I think, was. Carry on. I'll find out.
Okay, but like I said, the acting was not that bad. The plot was pretty good. This guy's, and it showed. It actually showed one of the aspects of law enforcement that most movies just don't show. Most movies will show law enforcement get into a gunfight, and like on a TV, like on most movies, cop will shoot 3 or 4 people, and then in 15 minutes he's back out on patrol. Does not work that way. This guy, at the beginning of the movie, he's a cop who got involved in a critical shooting, and he's going through counseling. I mean, this guy is dealing. It's taking a toll on him, and I know quite a few guys that's happened to. You have a critical incident. Hell, it happened to me, but it wasn't an officer-involved shooting. Damn near got my skull stomped in, and I went to therapy over it. So PTSD is not anything to be laughed off, and this movie actually took that seriously. It showed this cop trying to rebuild his life after he'd been involved in a fatal shooting. But his brother goes up to go camping and goes missing. So he goes up in the mountains. He's a former Army Ranger. So he heads up into the mountains to see if he can find his brother, and winds up running afoul of this Bigfoot. And I don't want to give away details, but I would definitely recommend Man versus Bigfoot. It was a good movie. The creature effects were a little cheesy. Weren't bad though. The fight scenes were pretty good. The acting not the best, but I would definitely watch it again. I mean, it was a good movie.
Yeah, I think I told you about it after I watched it. But I think you're right. I think Gimlin was the only famous guy in there. I didn't see anybody else.
Gimlin did a cameo there at the end, which I thought was really cool.
Yep. But
he was also one of the producers of the movie.
But yeah, I definitely wouldn't put that one in the category of the other 3 that we mentioned. But the vast majority of Bigfoot movies out there, you are 100% right, House. They suck.
There are a few gems, though.
There's a few. There are very few. I'd sit down and watch Exist again. I've watched Big Legend like probably 6 or 7 times. That's a great movie. I love that. The premise of that movie is awesome. It kind of on the same PTSD kick. Guy takes his fiance up to the woods to propose to her. Long story short, something happens and she gets got. Let's just put it that way. And then the rest of the movie is him trying to deal with it and him going back up there to try to find out what happened, because it was a bear attack or something like that. And he ends up meeting another guy up there that ends up helping him. And it's a great movie.
It's a good movie.
And pretty decent acting in that one too. I mean, Lance Henriksen's in it.
At the end. Greg House has got a great point. How did they make one with Sam Elliott in it and it still suck? Well, I don't know, but that movie was called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. That is 2 hours of my life I will never get back. That movie absolutely sucked.
I would watch Suburban Sasquatch again before I'd watch that one again. And anybody who's seen Suburban Sasquatch, that's on Birdemic level. That's the one where the magical fairy Indian princess is shooting the magical bow at Bigfoot, and it's ripping people's arms off, and the CGI is like the stuff you did with Windows 98. I mean, it is ungodly awful, but I'd watch that again before I'd watch that other movie.
Burkhardt's right. Boggy Creek was good.
Yep, Legend of Boggy Creek, the first one. After
the
that,
second one, the second one was.
But the second one was a movie. It was not. Yeah. It was just a movie based on the premise of what the documentary in the first one came up with. It was okay, but then they got just completely dumber and dumber as far as they went. And I think there was 5 of them in total.
I think so. I've only watched the first 2. I didn't bother with any.
Well, I haven't watched past the first 2, but I watched a YouTube video that it broke down the timeline. I think it's horror movie timelines, and it broke down all of them and put them in chronological order. I really was unaware that there was that many of them. Sonya found somebody who could be Gray Eagle. Who? Because if she knows him, there's a chance I know who she's talking about.
Gene knows more stuff. He's seen Claude. I think so.
Yes.
That sounds familiar.
Claude is. We were talking about that one before. That's the one where the kids go camping to do their book report or their whatever, and the Indian tracker that's park ranger. Him and the Miles O'Keefe that played Tarzan years ago in the movie Tarzan the Ape Man. He's the bad guy in the movie, but they had shot and killed the Bigfoot's kid, and it went crazy. But they were thinking it was a bear, and it's not a bad movie.
Yeah, there are a few really pretty good Bigfoot movies out there. There are a lot of stinkers, though.
I would put that one way above, like the Hitler and Bigfoot movie and the Suburban Sasquatch, but it's definitely below Exists and all that other stuff.
I would watch this one. Return to Boggy Creek 42 Acoustic Boogaloo.
It's got a kind of a nice ring to it.
Yeah, it does. Oh.
Okay, I don't know who Sonya's talking about. Dan Vasic, I guess is how you pronounce his name.
I don't know who that is.
Is he on YouTube? She said that's what she thinks he would look like.
Let me go to Google and look him up.
While you're looking that up, do you want me to show the new item to everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
So, who out there likes challenge coins? Who out there likes Wild Hunt challenge coins that say embrace the suck on the back of it and has the Thor's hammer? New item that we're thinking about trying. Y'all be interested in some of that kind of stuff.
I've seen, now that I looked him up, I've seen him before. He's done a lot of videos where he sings. If that's what you think, that, how you vision Will Gray Eagle, that's cool. But he's not who I would choose. He doesn't really look Native American to me. He just looks more just like a dude with long hair. No offense. Jim Bones likes it.
Yeah, everybody. Vicky, there is no Big Legend 2 yet. It was set up to have a second movie, and they had never done anything yet. House, Robbie, take my money. Hey, make an order, House.
Josh Dalton says this is approved by the general. That's awesome.
Thank you, General.
We were actually thinking about doing a different challenge coin for different main characters in the Wild Hunt, like do a Clark coin, do a Margolin coin, do a General Dalton coin, do just a general team coin.
Yep. So if you got some ideas, of something you want,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Antonio Vasquez says, "Oh my God, was that a Dogman behind you, Mr. DA?" Yeah, that's an animated video that a buddy of mine made for me. I just play it in a loop behind me on my green screen. In fact, if you looked over my shoulder here in a minute, you'll see uh, someone that looks a lot like me come out of that tent. Dr. 45-120, big legend. All you did was piss it off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That was a good movie.
They've been trying to get the second one off the ground. They just
Definitely watch the second one.
Just know for it. I could do that. Gideon with a gladius on the back. Yeah, I could do that.
If a gladius on the back with Senatus Popula, the SPQR, Senatus Populusque.
What he said.
Senatus Populusque. It's SPQR. Senatus Populusque Roma, for the Senate and people of Rome. A lot of the centurions used to have SPQR tattooed on their arms.
And Mark, we're working on a better Apex Predator.
Yeah, we're going to try to redo an Apex Predator logo and create a logo for the Apex Predator series as well as for Lakeview Man. I think those are the only two of the Cryptid series that don't have an actual overarching logo. I'm planning on changing that.
Yep. So as it stands right now, I can do Team Odin, the Wild Hunt, and Dark Frontiers because they've both got.
Which we still need a better, higher res version of the Dark Frontiers logo.
Yeah,
that's purposes.
I was about to say. So I was about to say we do need to get a little bit clearer logo, but yes.
I need to get a hold of my buddy Adam and get to work on these logos. Pete says, "Glad you're doing well, DA. Welcome to the ICD club. I've had mine since 2018. The scar tissue is what took the longest to heal for me. Yeah, so far it's still raised up and tender to the touch, but I tell you, I could barely move my arm just even a few days ago, and the swelling has gone way down. Like yesterday, I noticed it was like half a golf ball on my chest, and now it's just like a raised bump. So the swelling is coming down, but I'm figuring that where that scar tissue is, especially since I had to cut through that muscle, I'd say that's probably going to take the longest to heal. Robert Forster says, "Any news on Audible books?" I've got some projects going on with Cam. It's just a matter of him having time to get them done. I may give him a holler this weekend and see what he's up to and see if he has any updates. Yeah, Josh Dalton says a Gideon coin with Gladius and Spear crossed over a Legion Eagle in the center, SPQR around the rim. That sounds pretty cool.
Yep. You can do that. General, write that up and send it to me in Messenger. Yeah, Messenger. That way I can work on a design.
Roxanne says, "How much will they be?" Don't know. That'll be a question for Robbie.
You think that price we kicked around?
That is entirely up to you. You know what the cost is and per unit and everything.
I'm thinking, and obviously depending on what if you want one with a little bit more stuff to it and a little bit more, then it might make the price go up. But just like say if it's just a standard, with just a standard team coin. Let's just say this is the team coin with the Wild Hunt symbol on the front. That's Thor's hammer with Odin's face and Hugin and Munin on it. It says "Embrace." So let's just say that's the standard team coin, and that's all it is. That would probably be $35-$40 ish, maybe a little bit less. You know, I have to sit down and figure up all the stuff. But if you started wanting a lot more text on it, where I have to start working around, you know, sizing stuff and moving stuff around to make everything fit, that could add to the price. But I would say safely between $35 and $40 would probably cover cost to do them. What y'all think?
That didn't sound too bad. Like you said, got to factor in how much all the blanks are going to cost and your time involved and everything. So yeah, definitely.
I mean,
factor
most places that you go buy, but like Kevin bought me a challenge coin. We were at the Army Museum in Washington D.C., and it was $45 for just the basic coin. I mean, it wasn't nothing really. Sonya, I get most of my blanks and stuff from. I get most of my stuff that I do from Amazon.
Antonio Vasquez says, "Mr. DA, when are you going to interview Matt Imsh?" We were going to, and then he started having some pretty heavy health issues. So I'm just I touch base with him once in a while to see how he's doing. But we haven't worked out a time yet to get him on the show. I still wouldn't mind getting him on, but it's just going to be a matter of timing when he's healthy and when he's got the time. So yeah, we will look at that. We'll revisit that here fairly soon. Sonia Morgan says, "Where do you order from, Robbie?"
Amazon mostly. That's about the cheapest place to get blanks from everything. Try to keep the cost down. And yes, these we could. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you didn't want specific one of the Wild Hunt or any of that kind of stuff, if you just wanted some type of cryptid coin like your favorite cryptid, we can work something out on that too. So if you wanted one with a Wendigo, I mean, that'd just be a matter of use, because there's a million different pictures out there of what people think they look like.
I've got a bunch of artwork you're welcome to use.
All right, that's cool.
Get an image of a Wendigo going after a snowmobile and give it to Doc.
That's Doc's coin.
Yep. Little Patty says Primal Rage is one of the best Bigfoot movies I've ever seen. Same here. That movie is fantastic.
Yep, that's one of our favorites. We talk about that one because we are both of the opinion that that's a Gugway in that movie.
Noah Pender says, "Do you think Todd Standing is legit?" Yeah, I don't want to. I don't really like to go out on the record saying anything negative about anyone out there. I don't go after other channels. I don't start tossing shade at other channels. Let's just say I think they're very suspect.
Yeah, I'm with DA. I'm not gonna be the one and be that guy that comes out and says, "Oh, absolutely," because who knows. But that being said, there's a whole lot that makes me question or have questions in the videos and it's just I don't know, just something that gets that old police bone humming.
Yeah, we'll just say if those are legit videos, they're like nothing else out there, and there's a lot of red flags in and of that just by itself, but there's a lot of other red flags with it as well. So are they legit? I can't tell you for sure one way or the other, but there's just enough kinky with it to make my ass itch, so to speak. Um, so I reserve judgment, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Todd. Dorothy's right. Don't touch some subjects with a 10-foot pole extended. Exactly. I mean, just I've said many times, and something Robbie and I always reiterate: there are no experts in this field, and I don't put myself out there as any kind of expert. So, my opinion is worth no more than any of y'all. If you guys feel like it's legit, that's good enough for you. I mean, that's fine. If you don't feel like it's legit, again, until we've got concrete evidence, until we've got more than just amateur shot videos and bunch of scat samples and some hair samples, until we've proven it to science, all we've got is speculation, and your speculation is just as good as mine.
Yeah, and that's why we say that so often on the show. Is anybody comes across and says, "I'm an expert in this," that's when you need to kind of step back and say,
Yeah.
because how can you be an expert in something that still so many people swear up and down doesn't even exist?
Exactly. Mary Stoughton says, DA, why don't you have Todd on for a guest? I don't have any way of contacting Todd. I don't know the guy personally. And I don't really have any, I don't even have a friend of a friend who knows the guy. So I don't really have a way of reaching out to Todd to get him on the show. I'm not even sure he would do it. He doesn't do a whole lot of interviews. And no bigger than our channel is, we probably wouldn't even pique his interest anyway.
No, because there are people out there, believe it or not, who look at a show like ours and say, that's beneath me.
Yeah, less than 10,000, I ain't even bothering.
Yeah, what good would that do me?
Right.
And that's not the way things should work. But unfortunately, that's the way of the world, and that's the way that there's people out there who do work and operate like that. DA and I don't operate that way because we're just two guys out here, and 3 or 4 when Steve or Doc are involved. I mean, we're no different than anybody else. So it doesn't matter how many subscriptions and views we have. We're no better than anybody else. That's the way we're always going to be, and I think that's why. I guess it could be easy for some people in that situation to kind of lose sight of because everybody starts at 0 subscribers.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, it's easy to forget where you come from sometimes, but
I'm too old and set in my ways to change how I am now. So I'm just going to be an old hillbilly the rest of my life.
Yep.
Now, granted, if I had piles of cash, some of the decisions I might become epically stupid. But I know my wife would be like, "You guys are going where?" "Going to Port Chatham, honey." "You guys are idiots, you know that."
No, all she would say would be, "Well, make sure you get Noah back on the boat. I don't care if you two get back on the boat or not. Make sure Noah makes it back to the boat.
You two idiots can get yourself eaten, but you take care of my baby." That's kind of the speech we got the night we were going into Combs Ferry.
Yep, that's exactly the speech we got. You were like, "Honey, we can take care of it. I don't care about you two. Y'all got my baby."
That was a good night, though.
Yeah, it was. Very good.
Lyle McThompson says, "Would you ever interview Les Stroud?" Oh, I would love to. I'd love to have Les on.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times off
I
camera.
Recently just discovered another celebrity who's had multiple Bigfoot sightings. Thomas Jane.
Really?
Thomas
The
Jane.
Punisher?
I watched a YouTube video. He's had several Bigfoot sightings in his life.
Oh.
He grew up, hunting and fishing. The first one he saw it when he was 8 years old, when him and his dad were fishing.
He's one of my favorite actors. I'd love to get him.
I love Thomas Jane. I'd love to be able to get him on, have him tell his story. Jake Light says, top of the hour. We've completely forgotten about the affiliates.
Yeah, we kind of blew past both of those.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Mr. Mantle, can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
He did a good job as Mickey Mantle. He
Yeah, he
was
did.
very believable. I mean, he had the accent, he had the look. He even swung the bat like him. I mean, he looked like Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, he definitely studied his subject.
Yeah, like when he did the one arm home run, when Mickey hit the one arm home run that he knocked out of Yankee Stadium, the one he hit and still ain't landed yet.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which Barry Pepper did a good job as Roger Maris too. So I mean,
Right.
that's one
Doyle
of my
Thorne,
all-time favorite movies.
Doyle Thorne's got a good comment. He said, "It's hard to judge someone when you're not there with him. How can you say he's faking when you can't prove anyone else's evidence is actually true?" 100%. Which is why I'm not gonna disparage anything Todd's captured. I don't know. I wasn't there, but there's just a number of things about it that just are a little off-putting. And it could just be me being overly critical. So I'm not gonna say yay or nay on whether or not I think his stuff is legit. Just that I have questions. Uh, Dees says I think we're never going to satisfy the science crowd till one is dead. Big thing is the men in black will come and take it by force, or just maybe the government will finally say it's true. Hell, the government will finally say it's true. Hell, they have many. How many they have? Many they study. Yet we have so many going missing in our national parks. Yeah, I think the government has been aware of these things for a very long time, but I don't think they're ever going to be completely honest with us. Hell, they can't even be honest with us about what's going on in the freaking election right now, much less about cryptids.
And that's one of the standard questions that people always ask right off the bat. Well, how come if these things are real, we hadn't seen or I'm like, do you really honestly believe that our government is not aware of this and doesn't keep tabs on these things and doesn't know that these things exist and know that they're not going to tell us about them? I mean, if they'll hide the stuff that they normally hide from us, that we already know that they hide from us, why is it such a stretch to believe they'll hide this?
Right. 100% right.
Like I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they don't believe, but they're not of the opinion that, okay, it's 100% impossible for these things. I don't think they exist, but I'm not saying that they couldn't. That's the kind of the stance that they had. And I hit them with the national parks, the 88 million acres, then followed up with, okay, who did that? Went with which president did that, then hit our Bauman theory on it. And by the time I got done with that, they were like, wow, I've never thought about it that way. I'm like, it's hard to argue if you're a rational person and you're a logical person and you lay those facts out the way we've laid them out. It's really hard to argue that fact.
Right. But then there's going to be people who will refuse to believe until they step out of their tent and run into one's chest.
Yeah. But those are those are probably the ones that end up on the missing 411, which was that was another part of the conversation. And they were like, well, if they are real and they are taking people, I hit them with that NAM US fact. About 600,000 people go missing in the United States, in just the United States. I said, but think about how many people go missing that are transient that don't even get reported. And they were like, yeah, there's probably nobody reporting them. I'm like, yeah. So that 600,000 is probably closer to maybe 1 million.
More than likely. Misty Haynes says, bad thing is if there's ever definitive proof, so many people will go after these creatures and hunt them down if possible. Then they stay away from most humans because we destroy everything. You're not wrong. I mean, there's going to be two major types of reaction if the government just went, here's all the evidence, these things exist. Two things will immediately happen with most people. A good chunk of the population will never set foot in the woods again. And then there'll be a huge chunk of the population, people that want to be the first one to bring one in. Now that the government has said these things exist, they want to strap one to the hood of the old Chevy and drive it through town. So there will be an uptick of people actively hunting these things, and in some situations, I think that would be not just a mistake, but a fatal mistake, because these things know their territory way better than we're ever going to know it. We might get a few of them, but it might be what starts them just taking people out because they can.
Yeah. And I just, if you look at it from one standpoint, maybe the government's being benevolent and trying to help because of some of the things we said of, okay, if people did know, then they would be going into the woods and they would be trying to take these things out and stuff like we were just talking about would happen. And the government was like, I don't want that to happen to our beloved constituents. And we got to keep these things a secret to keep people safe. And, that's why we'll have, but more than likely it's, if we'll lose a lot of money from people not going and camping if these things come out. That's $33 billion a year that we're bringing in from the national parks. We got to keep this stuff a secret so people still go pay their money. That's more likely the bigger reason.
Ultimately, I think the reason that we don't know everything about them is that it comes down to money. It's going to affect the timber industry. It's going to affect the national parks. It's going to affect the income of a lot of people. So I think that's like Robbie was saying. I think that's probably a far more believable motivation to keep these things secret than any secret government program or anything like that. And I'm not saying secret government programs don't exist. God knows our government has tried to weaponize everything else. They've tried to weaponize dogs. They tried in World War II. They tried to weaponize bats. They made bat bombs. They've tried to weaponize dolphins. So Bigfoot and Dogman are out there. Our government is probably trying to figure out a way to turn them into a weapon. So like I said, I would never say these government programs don't exist, but the answer is probably far simpler and far more closely related to money on why they don't just admit they're out there. Clarko says, but doesn't the government want everybody to move into the city, so it'd be a good idea to let everyone know about them? Yes and no. If everybody abandoned the country, there would be no farmers. And, the farmers are the backbone. They feed this country. And without them, the cities starve pretty fast.
Flipper's coming for your house.
That's right. House is going to be swimming in the ocean. He's going to get a dolphin, swim right up and bite him.
You'll get that bottlenose somewhere he don't want it.
Also treading water, and all of a sudden. Jim Godwin says, checked out Coon Dog Cemetery, got screamed at 3 times. There's been a lot of places where, especially if you're out in the country, where people have had, like violent reactions in and around cemeteries. When I was in LBL, I was right there by Nickel Cemetery, and there was something pacing me in the woods. It never got close enough for me to see it, but there's so many stories of people that have had aggressive encounters in and around cemeteries.
Yeah, well, and that's when we were in LBL. Me and Johnny and Taylor and Tyler and Greg. That's where we were at. It wasn't Nichols Cemeteries. What was that one I said? It was up there next to the Welcome Center, or is that Nichols?
That is Nichols, one they're close to the cemetery, just down the trace from it. But LBL is dotted with little cemeteries. I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, you can't turn down a road and go around a curve without seeing a cemetery in that place.
God. All right, I'm trying to catch up with the chats. Some of the questions. Whew. I was going to say something, completely lost my train of thought. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it, Joe. Just an old fart says, why so many cemeteries? Because that land was all farmland up until the early 1960s. I want to say it was 62 or 63 when the Tennessee Valley Authority dammed those two rivers and seized all of that land. There are dozens of little family cemeteries all over LBL. And from what I hear, several that are under those lakes as well that were never moved. They just flooded those valleys.
Yep. That the feeling in that place is just it's different. Anybody's been there knows what I'm talking about.
John A says, arrived late. Hello from Bundaberg, Australia. Hey, thank you for joining us, man.
As long as you're here, it don't matter.
That's right. We're happy to have you. Noah Pender says, would be interesting if Bigfoot buried their dead. I wonder if they do, if they bury their dead or if they at least hide them. It'd be fairly easy for them to take one into a cave farther back than we can go. Mounting an expedition into deep into a cave is a pretty major undertaking. It's not like you can just grab a backpack with a canteen and a couple of sandwiches and go for days. There's just no way to get a resupplies when you're way back underground. So at the most, we're only able to go a couple miles without having to turn back for supplies.
Yep.
So I think our theory is that they use these deep caves a lot. So it would not surprise me to find out that yes, they are quote unquote burying their dead, but they're doing it by taking them deep underground.
Well, and even Kumbo said he kind of agreed with us because he said he's had some encounters in caves.
Misty says, I've been asked before if I thought they ate their dead. I don't know. What do you think, Robbie? Do you think they're cannibals?
I've never heard anything that even remotely kind of leaned in that direction. So I don't. I mean, I'm not saying that it's out of the realm of possibility, but I don't know. I don't see any evidence that leans towards that.
I'd say it's possible. I certainly wouldn't rule it out.
I'd say plausible, but not likely. Because
I personally lean more toward they bury their dead, but again, I don't claim to be an expert. It very well could be that they eat their dead.
But I mean, you never know if you start getting different species. I mean, like, could a gugway eat, just a regular Patty Gimlin? Yeah, probably. But are you still in cannibalism if you're? I mean, I guess you are. I guess that's kind of splitting hairs if you're looking at it that way. But It's just like some bears are more carnivorous than they are omnivores. Some bears are more omnivorous than they are, carnivorous.
Dr. 45-120 Sharp Rothstein says, do they do any post-death actions on the bones to hide their existence? Again, we don't know. It's entirely possible. They could have complicated death rituals. Hell, they may even just actually dig graves. We know a lot of the Native Americans would do what they call sky burials, where they would build platforms and put their dead up on the platform. So it's there's complicated death rituals in every society, um, and if these things are as smart as we think they are, they're likely are there as well. But with any degree of certainty, it's anybody's guess. I would love to know. That's an interesting question. Something I would definitely like to know more about. But me personally, if I had to hazard a guess, I think the most likely explanation is that they're taking them into a cave or something similar. Doesn't mean that that's what they're doing, but that to me that just kind of makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like we've said 100 times before, we're this is our opinion. We're not saying, oh no, it's totally
Right.
impossible that could happen. I'm just saying that I don't think that something like that would happen. I mean, I saw somebody on there said, cannibalism is a primate trait. Yeah, and I agree with that. But there's other species that do it too. I mean, and here we go again. I'm gonna get it because I'm gonna have to mention sharks. But there are certain species of sharks that give birth to live young, and it's survival of the fittest inside the mother's womb, and whoever's strongest and kills and eats their womb mates gets to get born. So it's not a 100% specific primate and human trait. I mean, it happens all across the boards. But
Jeff Yarrington said, anyone know why Bigfoot liked the color blue? Um, One, I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that they were partial to the color blue, but it it might be a vision thing. Mosquitoes. I know mosquitoes are more likely to bite someone wearing the color blue. Maybe it's just something that's in their visual spectrum that's easier to see.
yeah, I mean, I think you have to look all across the board. I mean, there's anomalous things that happen in every species. I mean, you'll have just like the killer whales you got right now that are attacking boats. That's not something that's happened across the board in all killer whales. It's only happened here recently with a few pods in a few certain areas. It's not a generalized trait of the orca species to attack boats. Not every shark attacks humans. Not every bear attacks humans. Yes, Gary, sand tigers are one of the ones that do that. They give birth to live young, and they're young eat each other inside the womb. But if you look at every species, there's something that happens, or you can pinpoint something in every species that happens that doesn't happen with every single one of those species. I mean, we're the best example of that because not everybody's a serial killer, but we got some of the sickest things that ever walked the face of the earth with some of the things they do. But you can't say that's indicative of every human just because you got some that do that kind of stuff. So could there be certain types of Bigfoot species that do that? Yeah, but am I going to sit here and say that there's enough for me to say that's something that they all do? No. But is it possible that they could do it? Yeah, I'd say it's possible.
And I would also say that there's not one answer to that. In some cases, the Bigfoot clans may eat their dead. Uh, Much like our theory about tongue pops versus tree knocks. I don't think there's any one answer to the source of what these tree knocks are. I very much think some of them could be wood on wood. I think some of them could be rock clacks. I think some of them could be them slapping their chests. I think some of them could be them slamming their hand down on the ground like a gorilla does. I think a good deal of it is tongue clicks, but I don't think it's any one solid answer. There's no one this is the definitive, this is what they do.
Yeah.
I think behavior is probably as varied across different types of Bigfoot as they are across people.
Yeah, I just want to say everything we're saying is speculation because
Right, exactly.
until they're recognized like every other species out there, and they may never be because of the simple fact of how, and I don't want to say shy because I know they're not like
Elusive.
shy, reclusive. That's a better word of how reclusive they are. They may never be studied like some of the other animals in the animal kingdom, and that may be because they are so intelligent, is they're smart enough to understand.
Look,
And
look at wildlife photographers right now. We know mountain lions exist. But if you send a photographer out to take pictures of a mountain lion, and this is again a creature we know exists, they can spend weeks or months out in the mountains and the hills and the woods waiting for that perfect time to get a shot. Even if they find the mountain lion, sometimes it's not going to be very cooperative. It'll be hiding among the trees, or it'll be hunting up in the rocks. Uh, Even like I said, even with species that we know exist, it can take a photographer weeks or even months to get ideal photos. And people wonder why it's so hard to get photos of Bigfoot, because nobody's out there spending 2 and 3 months looking to get a photo of one. And if you have an encounter, uh, when you're out camping or driving along the road, most of the time that encounter only lasts seconds, and it is very difficult for you to grab your phone, activate the camera app, and start snapping pictures. I know supposedly with the new Androids, there's a way to turn on the camera app without unlocking the phone, but I don't remember how to do it.
I don't either.
I used to know, but I would have to grab my phone, unlock it, and then activate the camera app and bring it up and start taking pictures. Um, and generally, most sightings take place in less time than that.
Yeah, I mean, and Johnny and I were talking about this the other day when because our next show or not our next show that comes out, the show after those Ark Tyler show comes out, the one we just recorded was about our trip to Coleman's Ferry and all that stuff. And Johnny's like, "Well, did anybody collect the deer hide?" And I'm like, "No, we were." And he was like, "Well, you should." I'm like, "Look, dude, you know as well as I do, it's easy to sit back and armchair quarterback and say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that." But when you're out in a situation and stuff's happening like that, it's easy to forget about. And I told him, I said, as soon as I saw that, I went into tracking mode. I was looking around the bottom of the tree, looking at the tree, doing this. I said, everybody was doing the things that they were doing. It's just something like that was just nobody ever even thought, well, maybe we should collect that.
I went from looking at when you showed that to me. I went from looking. I looked at it. I looked at the ground. I looked at the blood, and then I started looking around the area because I was immediately thinking that was put there to get our attention. And the last thing I wanted to do was let something walk right up behind us. Joe Parker says, "Do we know whether boogers are colorblind?" Yeah, again, that's just a complete something for speculation. We have not had one to study, but somebody mentioned that they seem to be attracted to the color blue. So we don't know what their makeup is of the rods and the cones in their eyes. They may not be colorblind. They may be colorblind. We don't know. But it does seem likely that they can see color because they certainly react to certain colors. I also think that they can see into the uh, infrared spectrum because they will avoid trail cameras, and they'll also avoid your motion sensors on your deck lights. Misty agrees with us. She said from what she's heard, she thinks that they can see color, but it's a very interesting question. Uh, House had a good comment. He said, during my extended time encounters, being bluff charged and ran out of the woods, the camera was not on my mind. I was developing a firearm. I'm absolutely right there with you, dude. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like you're out there with an expensive camera around your neck on camera safari, just taking pictures of wildlife. Generally, if something happens, your first reaction is good old ass saving fear.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We love to give each other a hard time about not doing this or not doing that, not being ready. But the simple fact is, when you're out there and something happens, you get so caught up and so wrapped up in what's going on that sometimes you just forget. And it is what it is. I mean, until you've been in that situation where you've walked out there and you've seen a track, and you're like, oh my God, there's a track, and all bets are off. Just when we saw that one in Joe Ball that night, we were just so pumped that we found that the three of us were just like, oh my God, look at that. I can't look at it. But, we thought about casting it, but we didn't have anything with it or with us for it. But you get so wrapped up in the moment, it's easy to forget stuff like that. And I don't, a lot of people don't understand. It's just like our training in law enforcement. If you don't constantly prepare and train for something, when the time hits, you don't know what's going to happen. So if we're not constantly preparing and training for how we're going to handle finding footprints or having encounters and stuff like that, it's crapshoot what's going to happen.
Yeah. And again, a lot of encounter stories are people that had an encounter that they weren't even believers until they saw it. And you think that person who did not expect to see a Bigfoot or a Dogman in any way, shape, or form is going to have the presence of mind to start snapping pictures? They're probably going to be thinking, I need to get my ass out of here right now. There's probably no, hey, maybe I should get this for America's Funniest Home Videos. It's more like I need to get my ass in the car and get down the road.
Keep stepping.
Yeah. Greg said it best. I was focused on staying alive. Yeah. I've seen deer and mountain lion cross the road when I was going down the highway and never once thought to grab my camera and take pictures of them. Josh Dalton says, yeah, why the after action report is critical in military and public services. Exactly. Mark Napier says, Google says the great apes are not colorblind. So if the great apes can see in color, it's very likely these things can, if you believe they're primates. I mean, technically humans are primates too, but where they appear along that evolutionary tree, are they closer to human or are they closer to ape? But I would say it's probably a very high likelihood that they can see in color. With a dog man, it'd be anybody's guess. Dogs don't see in color. If Yarrington says, I'm not trying to record anything while I'm unassing the area. Exactly. I'm more concentrating on making sure I don't trip and fall and become dog chow than I am worried about trying to snap pictures of anything.
Well,
Greg says, Misty, yeah, the one I saw I was within 6 feet of and never smelled anything. There's a lot of stories where people describe a smell, and there are other stories where they don't. I know I read an article about great apes. They have a scent gland, and they can turn that on and off. I mean, it's not on constantly. When they're marking territories, when you smell that. The night that we heard something hit the side of our cabin up near Gatlinburg, and the next day I found that track, right outside our cabin. I never smelled anything. I didn't smell anything that smelled skunky or wet dog or anything like that. So I think they can turn that on and off like at will.
And two, I think the weather probably plays a good part in that too, because they're outside a lot of the time. If it just starts raining, they're going to smell if they've just been outside in a rainstorm versus if they've been out, if it hadn't rained for a while. And so like you said, it rained after you found that track, but it hadn't rained prior to that.
Right. Steve Stepanek says, I heard the police call Bigfoot sightings instead of black cows. Is there any truth to that? We never had anything like that in any department I've ever worked for. Never had hey, if you see this or this is what you say on the radio. Never had that chat with anybody. But I can see how in areas with a lot of heavy activity might. So I won't say it doesn't happen, but it never happened in the departments I worked at.
I've never heard of it. Greg, have you ever heard that?
Yeah, Greg, you anything in your area? Carl Pellerin says, I would not shoot unless I had no other choice, but will not be a target and do nothing. I will not run, and I will have my guys back that I'm with. I would rather back out of the area than have to kill one. But if I got to shoot one, yes, I am not shooting to just piss it off or to scare it. I don't want to be the guy that brings one in, but the only way I will actively engage one is to save my life or the life of somebody I'm with. I do not want to be one of the guys that brings one of these things in. And yeah, there'd be some notoriety that go with it, but there'd be a lot of headache as well, especially if the government wants to shut you up. And the government that can give you anything can take it all away as well. And that's kind of where we're at, especially if they're making this big push. And I'm not trying to get political, but they're making a big push toward digital currency. And if they want to turn that shit off, they can. So I don't want to be the guy. I don't want to incur that kind of wrath. I don't want to, bring ruin down on my family just because I shot a Bigfoot.
Greg said he's
Patty
never.
Says, what's that?
I was just saying, Greg said he's never heard a code or a phrase for it.
Little Patty says, DA, you think the smell could be pheromones that they can turn it on or off? I think it's probably more likely that it's some sort of scent gland. That would be my guess. I mean, that we've seen that in other animals. We've seen that in apes and chimps. Well, chimps technically are a member of the ape family. They're not a monkey. But species of apes do have scent glands. There are other animals that do it as well. So I to me, the most logical explanation for what that smell is probably a scent gland that they mark territory with. But I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Chris, like a skunk.
Just my best guess.
But you think about it. Cats do that. Think about who has male cats in their house and has had to throw out furniture because they sprayed it.
Right. Joe Parker says, "Good question, DA or Robbie. What would you do with the body?"
Probably leave it where it lays. If I had to shoot one,
if you shoot one, I would say odds are very damn good it ain't alone. And I think if you're trying to do something like cart a body out, you're probably gonna get the wrath of the rest of the clan. But assuming you did manage to shoot one and it was alone, I don't know that I would be able to. I've gone elk hunting, and it was damned hard to bring an elk out of the woods with help. So unless you've got a powerful vehicle to drag something that big out, you're not going to be able to bring an entire Bigfoot body out, not without, lots of help, a come along, and a truck. But if you just happen to bag one out in the field, I'd probably bring the hands and feet, leave the rest. You can get plenty of DNA from the hands and feet. Hand will prove the existence of a creature just as well as the rest of the body will. I would not take it all, but that would just be what I would do were I that inclined. Again, I don't want to bring one in. I don't want to shoot one. But I'm telling you, if you did bring something like that out, you better disseminate that stuff quick. Send genetic samples to multiple sources. Hide pieces, like put them in a deep freeze somewhere that's not on your property. Because if the government decides they're taking it, you're not going to stop them. Roxanne says, my brother elk hunts and he dresses it out where they drop. Yeah, because when you field dress one out, you drop a lot of that weight. But even once you've got it dressed out and quartered it up, that's still a lot of weight to have to pack out of the woods. Even the guys that go way back in the Rockies that go elk hunting generally do it with pack animals. They'll quarter it up and put it and distribute the weight on pack animals and bring it out because even without the entrails, and if you were so inclined to leave the head, if you're just packing up the quartered body, that's still a few 100 pounds of meat. Northwest Native Tracker says we humans have scent glands in our pits and groin that the medical field doesn't know how or why they work, yet or why we still have them. They're just vestigial organs. I mean, at one point we were primitive, living barely living in caves and barely had fire. So at some point in our evolution, those were necessary. But it's kind of like the appendix. They don't even really fully understand what the appendix does, yet we still have one. Steve Stepanek says, I know in Kansas, mountain lions are chipped. It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me to find out that the government knows where these things are because a lot of them are chipped. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If the government was aware of them in Department of Conservation, it would be a great idea if they were fully aware of these things to chip them. That way they know if one was in the area when somebody went missing. It would also explain why sometimes there is a massive outpouring of people that go out to help look for the missing person, and sometimes they're just like, oh, they're gone. And sometimes they don't put a very big search out. I don't know why, but it does seem like there are times when somebody goes missing, they'll do a cursory search for a few days and then declare them missing. And then there are others they'll be searching for weeks.
Yeah. I mean, that I've never really thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
Often wondered about that, why there are times when the search for a missing person is like every man for 100 miles comes and they're out there for weeks. And then other days it's like, oh, they've been missing for 2 days. We've declared them dead. Does make a certain amount of sense, I suppose.
Yeah.
Dean Russell says they're chipped in Missouri too. I did not know that the Department of Conservation had them chipped in Missouri. Doesn't surprise me. They probably chip most of the bears too. Mark Napier says humans have pheromones, don't they? Yeah, humans do. Don Donaldson says also explain why sometimes the army shows up. Misty Haynes says, if you had a signal, do you think you could live stream right then discard the phone and divot out the parts? That's such a hard call on what to do to be safe and get the proof. If you had a good enough signal, you could probably go live. But the thing about it is once they discover what you're going live about, it's not very difficult to kill a signal, and it's certainly not difficult to make a video disappear off the internet. Dorothy Wade says people report sightings of them with collars and on necks and ankles. I've heard that as well. There was even one, I was just watching a documentary set up in Alaska. There was a guy who reported, he was a trapper, and this has been years and years ago that he reported this, that he was up in a mountain pass on the Kenai Peninsula, and he was on a snowmobile, and he stopped to take a break, and in the mountain pass below him, he saw several Bigfoot in chains being led into a door in the side of the mountain. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But the guy lost his wife and his job over it because he continued to swear up and down that that's what he saw. Super chat from Eric Nelson. Thank you, man. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Greg says, with AI now, just a video, no matter how good, won't be convince anybody. Exactly. And there's way too many AI photos floating around where people claim it's an actual legit Bigfoot photo. Right now, AI photos are kind of easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. But you give it a few more years, and it's going to be almost impossible without like high-end equipment to tell an AI photo from a legit photo. Those AI programs are getting better daily, and there will come a time when you won't be able to tell them apart.
Yep.
Joe Parker says some bear in Louisiana, if they are chipped in Louisiana, and if they stop moving, the powers that be are on the carcass. That doesn't surprise me. That would make a lot of sense on how a lot of times they know when somebody's taken, one of these animals illegally. Yeah, Greg's got a good point about the AI stuff. Because of the prevalence of AI videos and AI artwork out there, it's becoming increasingly difficult to accept any photographic evidence at face value. And, I know this is probably going to upset some folks, but 99% of the time when somebody posts a picture with a couple of red circles on it, I don't see a damn thing. But I tell you, I could go out in my backyard right now to the fence between my house and the neighbor that lives behind me. There's a honeysuckle bush that covers that whole fence. It's thick and you can't see through it, but you can see over it when you're standing up. I could go out there, squat down next to that fence so you couldn't see the house right behind me, take a picture of it, post it under a different name in one of these groups and put a couple red circles on it, and there'll be 50 people swear they see a dozen Sasquatch hiding in that bush. And there's not a damn one. It's just a couple feet thick, and there's my neighbor's yard and his dog's on the other side. But there will be somebody that claims they see it, and that's why I don't put in a lot of stock to these red circle photos. I like to refer to it as bullshitography.
Yep.
John Donaldson says, plus if you live stream, they'll have your ID and be waiting for you when you come out of the woods. You ain't wrong. Dr. 45-120 says, evil thought, place the chip on the local police car. Well, most cop cars are chipped anyway. You just have to have access to the program. Most departments can track everywhere their cars have been. There's generally a GPS tag on most patrol cars these days. Michael House says, I really like this channel, but I didn't come from monkeys, and I won't ever think that like that. And I'm not debating, what the source of evolution, but you can trace from different animals. Like look at dogs and wolves. You can trace the genetics back where dogs descended from wolves, and that's pretty much an established fact. We can look at that and see where the source of canines evolved from. But it doesn't necessarily mean we ourselves personally evolved from ape, but somewhere along that genetic path we took a different branch. So you can look at that and take it with whatever you will, but we have similar DNA to primates, very similar. In the case of chimps, it's what, like 96% or 98%.
Yeah, 98%, I believe. But there is so much genetic difference in that 2% that that's where a lot of people get tripped up on that. Oh, it's 98%. Yeah, but that 2% is massive.
And who's to say that, a Bigfoot creature might fall somewhere between that 2%? They might have, 98, 99, 99.6. They might have a much closer DNA to us, but the difference is in the pudding, so to speak. Even a small change in that DNA changes the species drastically. I had another super chat. This one from Jeff Yarrington. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. He said, oh, that was just the character. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the super chat, dude. Yeah, and we can admit the existence of other species with similar genetics to us without necessarily saying that we were once this. But somewhere along that genetic line, our species took a different turn than theirs, and
Well,
we have what we have.
this is no different than the debate of
Yes, Robert D, we're live.
the you know a Ford and a Chevy are both automobiles, but they're different automobiles. Doesn't
Right,
mean
and the parts don't cross
aren't
work.
aren't interchangeable a lot. Some parts are, some parts aren't. Ford has their own brand of parts, but that doesn't. But that's because they were designed that way. And I'll say that's as far as I'm gonna go with it, because this is not a religious show. We're not getting off into that. Most everybody knows where I believe, but it is what it is. I mean, we can be similar, but that doesn't mean we came from that. But that doesn't mean that we can't be similar. It's just a design thing. Ford and a Chevy are similar because they're both vehicles, but they're not the same.
Right.
There's a lot of differences
A
when
Ford
you
and a
start.
Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. You start breaking stuff down. They're both automobiles that you can drive on the road, but that doesn't mean they're inherently the same. You can't take apart a Tesla and fix it with your Ford Crown Vic. It's not going to work.
Robert D said, "Da, how are you doing?" I'm doing a lot better, man. I'm feeling better, breathing better. The wound is still healing. It's still pretty tender, but yeah, I'm doing a lot better than I was. I'm feeling a lot better and getting better and stronger, pretty much on a daily basis. It's not going to be long before I'm back to full and out prowling and growling out in the woods again, taking pictures and acting like an idiot. If you ask my wife, uh, but yeah, I am much better. But I am. It's going to be another at least a week before I can drive again. They don't want me doing anything strenuous with this left arm until it's had a chance to heal more. Um, I think I missed a couple of comments. Uh, Doyle Thorne says 98% is only after 18% of theirs and 21% of our junk DNA is removed. Who made the decision what is junk or not? Good point. I mean, you never know. Um, Mary says I have a good sense of humor. Well, thank you. Um,
Yeah,
Lyle
and
McThompson says I say they may be the Nephilim from the Old Testament. You know, I don't really jump down that rabbit hole, but I'm not going to say it's impossible. But I would say that there's far more likely explanations without having to involve Nephilim. And I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying that that it's impossible. I'm just saying that there are plenty of terrestrial animals and and naturally occurring things that don't necessarily have to involve the Nephilim theory. But again, it could be. I don't know.
I mean, here's a fun fact. If we want to talk percentages on DNA, you know humans share 50% of their DNA with a banana. What does that mean?
Exactly.
Not a damn thing. It just means DNA is DNA, and it was designed to do what it was designed to do. Period.
Misty's absolutely right. We do share a lot of DNA with pigs as well. That's why a lot of things that were done, like uh, when they were trying to regrow like human ears and stuff, they would use pig DNA, pig tissue to try to regenerate it. So we do share a lot of DNA in common with them. Uh, Robert D says you are what you eat, Robbie. Miss Lene says I ain't no nanner.
Never said I ate bananas. I said that's we share 50% DNA with them.
I do like a good nanner every now and then. Hmm.
Right?
Yeah, well, we're at the 2 hour mark. I probably start winding things down. My shoulders starting to complain a bit. Um, still a good time though. I think we had a good show. We went down some rabbit holes a couple times, but we always do.
I'm about to say,
Um,
what else is
Leanne,
new?
Leanne says, DA, maybe they gave you a pig pacemaker. I don't think it was made of pig. It was made of titanium, but who knows? It might work in a pig too. Um, sorry, I was reading some of the comments. Um, Folks, we're going to start winding things down. I want to kind of kick back and rest my shoulder a bit. Um, it was a good exercise for me to see if I could do it, and now I know I can. We'll definitely be back on Wednesday night, barring as the phrase goes, "If the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise." So we should be back on Wednesday night at our usual time, and hopefully I will continue to improve over the next few weeks, uh, and I'll be back to mischief and mayhem in no time. Uh, but again, folks, thank you guys for being here tonight. We had some awesome questions. Though we didn't talk about as many sightings as we'd planned to originally, we did kind of got off on a tangent. But I think that we had some awesome questions from the crowd tonight. So really, I think it was a great night, and got to share a lot of information and share opinions, and I think that's what it's all about. Um, Big thank you to everybody. Big shout out and thank you to the moderators. Um, we need to get back to doing the affiliate stuff, but we didn't even do it tonight, so I'm not even going to worry about it. But the one I will get to is the one I will always want to make time for is the 22 a day foundation. Folks, we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Check on your veteran friends, your first responder friends, because some of the things they have to deal with really weighs on the mind, and PTSD is something that no one should have to face alone. It's brutal, and I can tell you firsthand, it is life changing. So check on your friends and family that have worn a uniform, have served in any capacity, because they've all given more of themselves than we had any right to ask. We owe them a debt that we will never fully repay. Uh, Mark your calendars on the 22nd of every month. Make that the day you reach out to all your veteran friends, your first responder friends, and just let them know you're thinking about them. And let's get that 22 down to 0. And I'm not going to go into a lengthy conversation on that tonight. You guys know how I feel. But check out the Tell Valhalla Project, because they really are doing a lot of good work helping veterans out there, buying prosthetic legs and service animals for these guys. And like I said, we owe them a debt that we'll never fully repay. And again, check on your friends and loved ones who have served, and doesn't matter what capacity, because it doesn't matter what your job is. Sometimes things go sideways, and you see and have to do things that you are tough to live with. I know Robbie can tell you in his career, he wasn't in the military, but he's been a law enforcement officer, which to me, he's got the receipts, he's got the T-shirts, he's right there with us. He's had to see some things in his career that probably still bug him in the dead of night. Um, Working accident scenes, going to crime scenes. We law enforcement and first responders of all the capacities, like firefighters, although I jokingly call them second responders because they wait for us to secure the scene, but that's just being a jokester. But first responders, EMTs, even corrections officers, they see some pretty horrific things, and sometimes that stuff is impossible to unsee. So check on those folks. Let them know you care about them. Let them know you're thinking about them, and let them know that they're loved. Because like I said, 22 a day is 22 too many. But we'll close her out tonight with a toast. It's something I'm pretty happy that we've been doing, and something I intend to keep doing. The toast is from an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass." It's a beautiful tune. If you have ever heard it, I recommend going on YouTube and looking up "The Parting Glass." There's multiple great versions out there. My favorite is from a group called the Face Band. That's an a cappella group, and I really like those guys a lot. But check them out and listen to the song. But the portion of the song I want to quote is kind of near and dear to me, and it kind of helps us say goodbye to those we've lost along the way. So if you guys will join me in a toast, doesn't matter what you're drinking, be water, anything stronger, Kool-Aid, tea, doesn't matter. But if you guys will join me in a toast, and we'll close her out. Let me move that off our faces. Since it's just me and Robbie, it's a little different. What the quote says, "But since it fell into my lot, that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.